Ooh, Halloween is coming close, and Detective Marlin has his hands full with all kinds of creepy creatures and mysterious cases. Hopefully, you'll help him crack these frightening riddles.
Yeah.
A scared store owner called Detective Marlin. He said there was a vampire in his store. When the detective arrived, he didn't see the store owner, but there were 3 other people inside. Look at them attentively and help the detective figure out which one is a vampire. Well, the first one's eyes are red, but it looks as if he didn't sleep well at night. The second one is freezing. All parts of his body are covered with some pieces of clothing. But look at the third one. He's drinking something red from a glass using a straw. He must be the vampire the detective is looking for. Now, where is that store owner? Look at this family very attentively. Detective Marlin was invited to their house to figure out in the body of which family member a ghost is hiding. Soon he found the answer. How about you? Admittedly, the woman does look scared, but it has nothing to do with the ghost. She just choked on some food. The man is wearing dark glasses, even though he's indoors, but he's blind. Do you see that white cane the blind use next to him? That's why he's got glasses. The granny is the one you need. There's a trace of ectoplasm that goes through the whole room toward her. One day, a very pale woman covering a bite on her neck with her hand approached Detective Marlin. She said that when she had been returning home the evening before, someone had attacked her and turned her into a vampire. She wanted to find the culprit. The detective found 3 suspects. Look at them and find the one that has turned the woman into a vampire. This man is quite old and has no teeth, so he can't be a vampire. This woman has tan marks, but vampires can't sunbathe. So the man wearing a hat and gloves must have turned her into a vampire. Now, Detective Marlin is walking through a park when he notices 3 men sitting on a bench. He immediately realizes that one of them is a ghost. Can you guess which one? The first man has a pale complexion. The second one is just wearing loose, oversized clothes. The ghost is the man whose leg is going all the way through the bench. Two husbands suspect their wives were werewolves. They invited Detective Marlin to find out the truth. The detective examined the women's bedrooms and realized that only one of them was a monster. Which one? This bedroom has a scary atmosphere, all dark with posters of rock bands on the walls. The second one is pink and very feminine. But have you noticed scratch marks on the floor in the bed? The woman who lives here is a werewolf. Detective Marlin's next case is no less tricky. A priceless mirror, 6 feet tall, with a beautiful silver frame, was stolen from a legendary haunted house. The main 3 suspects are the Halloween monsters last seen in the house, a witch, a vampire, and a werewolf. Can you help the detective figure out the culprit? It was the witch. Silver is known to harm werewolves. The werewolf wouldn't have touched it. Vampires can't see their reflections, so the vampire wouldn't have any need for the mirror. The only one who might need this mirror is the witch. Detective Marlin is exhausted. He's been working so hard that he decides to treat himself to a cup of coffee. When he enters the nearest coffee shop, he sees two guys. They wear similar clothes, hold steaming coffee cups, and in general seem to be perfectly fine. But the detective immediately understands that one of them is a werewolf in disguise. Which one? Look at the guy on the right. There are strange marks on the rim of his cup. Are they left by his fangs? Also, his pupils are a bit elongated. And there is a paw print design on the coffee shop paper bag he's holding. Wait, is it a special establishment for werewolves? Detective Marlin suspects that one of his old friends is immortal. One day, he's invited to a small party one of the men hosts. He's standing in the corner, looking at his three friends sitting by the fireplace. And suddenly, it dawns on him. Have you figured out which man is immortal too? The man on the left looks very old-fashioned. The one in the middle is reading a book in Latin. And only the man on the right seems to be very young. But look at that picture on the fireplace. It must have been taken on the day when the Eiffel Tower was opened. But the man is there too, and he hasn't aged a day since then. Last night, on a full moon, several people disappeared in the city. Detective Marlin questioned locals and found out that they believe the culprit was a werewolf. Soon the detective had three suspects, Jack, Levi, and Luke, but all of them had alibis. Jack said he had been walking with his girlfriend near the river. Levi had been choosing a silver ring for himself in the mall. And Luke, who worked as a museum guard, had a night shift at work. So, which guy is guilty? Jack was walking under the light of a full moon and didn't turn into a werewolf. Levi wasn't afraid to put on silver rings, even though this metal harms werewolves. It means that the werewolf and potential culprit is most likely Luke. Once, Detective Marlin found out about a strange case. A man who was visiting the city heard about a cursed house. A vampire and a beauty were said to live there. And since the rumor had it that the beauty was held in the house against her will, the traveler decided to help the girl. But when he was talking to her, she suddenly shouted, "The vampire is returning! We have to hide in the basement and lock the door!" And so they did. But in the morning, the man still found himself turned into a vampire. How was it possible?
Yeah.
It didn't take the detective long to realize that the beauty herself was the vampire. Detective Marlin's wife was decorating their house for Halloween. She sent her husband a message asking him to buy something with a leg, an arm, and a head, but without flesh or eyeballs. At first the man was confused, but soon he realized what his wife wanted. Have you figured it out too? Mrs. Marlin needed a skeleton. The next day, the detective got a new message from his wife. This time, he needed to get something wrapped, but not a gift. It had to be something kept neatly in a chamber, which archaeologists considered a great treasure. What did Detective Marlin have to bring home? Mrs. Marlin wanted to use a mummy to decorate the house. A zombie, a mummy, and a ghost bought a house. It has lots of different rooms, but there's one room you will never find there. What is this room? It's the living room. Look at these two ladies. Which one seems suspicious? It's the woman on the right. Her reflection is all wrong. She's not human. Look at these people dancing at a costume party attentively. You need to figure out who is a werewolf. It's that guy in the corner. He's wearing a human mask, but his thick hair is peeking from underneath the mask. Some people believe in me and others don't. At night, I roam around, and sometimes I float. If you hear a troubled noise coming from the ground, go run and hide from my creepy sound. What am I? I'm a ghost. Some people fear me. The more of me you have, the less you see. What am I? I'm darkness. I'm thought to bring bad luck. I blend in the night, and I'm known to mingle with witches. What am I? I'm a black cat. Meow.
Edward and Stan are best friends. Edward lives with his wife, Leah, and Stan lives alone. Can you spot Stan's house? There's a love note on the fridge in the right kitchen. Therefore, Stan lives in the left one. Edward is furious because Leah cleaned his home office without permission. Can you spot 5 changes? Here they are. A lot of neighbors gather for Edward's garage sale. One of them is a robot. Can you guess who? This gentleman. Stan is visiting a food court and finds 2 similar bakeries. Can you spot 5 differences between them? Over here. What about these burger places? Can you find 10 differences? Here they are. Can you spot a mistake in this menu? Tuna isn't an ice cream. What about this coffee menu? Any mistakes? Free toppings have a price. Stan works in an agency that holds super secret investigations. They're looking for people with superpowers all over the planet. One day, an anonymous user broke into their corporate system where all the data was stored. Stan finds 3 suspects who are capable of such crimes and interrogates them. He asks only one question. What did you manage to find out when you stole the data? Billy says, I haven't done this kind of crime for 15 years. I don't want to go back to prison. Anna says, I was going to steal your data, but I changed my mind. You didn't have any valuable information. Nobody will believe in superheroes. And Liam replies, Bruh, if I committed such a crime, I would have covered all traces. Who's lying? Anna. She couldn't have learned the secret information without breaking into their system. Stan is visiting a fashion show. He received a clue that one of these models can be a robot. Can you guess who? The second lady. She has a USB outlet on her neck. The robot model, Nina, is very famous, and nobody knows that she's not human. Stan invites her to his office. Nina confesses, I arrived from another planet to study human behavior. Unfortunately, someone recorded their secret interrogation and posted it online. Only 4 people were in the office at that moment. Stan questions them. Ryan, the cleaner, says, I was vacuuming the 5th floor and couldn't hear anything. Mia, the manager, says, I'm a huge fan of Nina, even though she's not a human. I would never set her up like that. And the guard, Billy, says, I didn't hear your conversation. I was watching a football match in my headphones. Who's lying? Ryan. Their office is a 4-story building. Nina invites Stan over for dinner. She lives in a big, circular house with a maid, a butler, and a gardener. Nina goes to her room to change. Suddenly, Stan hears her scream and runs to her. Oh no, someone broke into my safe and stole my diamond necklace. Stan interrogates the staff. The butler says he was organizing the library. The maid says that she was dusting the corners. And the gardener says she was watering the roses. Who's lying? The maid. She was dusting the corners, but Nina lives in a circular house. So there are no corners. Stan invites Nina to a fancy restaurant to refute rumors that she's a robot. Can you spot any mistakes in this menu? They confused pomegranate with meat. Stan leaves the table to wash his hands and returns in 2 minutes. Can you spot 5 changes? Here they are. Nina slips and falls on the floor. Now she needs to replace a broken fragment in her body as soon as possible. Stan takes her to a secret lab. They need to enter a 3-digit code to open the door. He starts looking for clues and notices some tips written on the wall. But the last digit is erased. Can you help them crack the password? The digits indicate the points of intersections of the lines. So the last digit is 4. They open the door and enter a spacious hallway. A note on the wall says, Lab is behind the purple door. Can you help the guys find the purple door? The first door is wooden, but it has an inscription and an arrow indicating that the purple door is on the right. The second door is painted blue and red, so it doesn't fit. Let's take a closer look at the third door. There is purple color under the layer of yellow paint, so the guys choose this door. Nina throws a party at her house and invites Stan. He receives an anonymous message. There's a werewolf among the guests. Can you find this person? The first lady is wearing very long nails, and the second guy has a heavy beard. But it doesn't prove anything. But let's take a look at the third lady. She's trying to hide her shiny yellow wolf eyes under her fancy sunglasses. In the kitchen, Stan meets 3 chefs preparing delicious meals. One of them is a criminal. Can you guess who? The third lady. She's adding glass fragments to the food. Stan calls the police and they arrest the third chef. She confesses that one of the guests, John, bribed her. He asked her to put glass in Stan's plate, but there are 3 Johns at the party. The officer asks one of them just one question. How do you know Stan? John 1 says, I'm a billionaire and I don't do interrogations without my lawyer. John 2 says, I came here to see Nina because she's my crush. I've never seen Stan before. And John 3 says, Stan and I went to the same college. I haven't seen him for many years, but today we met by chance. Who's lying? John 1. He's wearing a fake Gucci sweater. It's unlikely that he's a billionaire. The next day, Stan wakes up in a dusty basement. A creepy voice says that Stan can pass through one of these 3 doors. Behind the first door, there's a tank with crocodiles. Jungles full of wild animals are hiding behind the second door, and there's a giant blue whale behind the third door. It can easily swallow an adult human. Which door is more or less safe? Stan should pick the third door. Whales can't survive without water. Therefore, it's not a threat. Stan returns to his office and finds out that someone has stolen the most expensive superhero costume from the lab. Only 3 people knew about this artifact and had a key: Mia, Billy, and Rose. Stan questions everyone. Mia says, I was feeling sick yesterday, so I went home. Billy says, I locked the office at 10 p.m. and carried my key with me. And Rose says, I carried out technical testing of the suit in the afternoon. After that, I locked it up and left. Who stole the costumes? Mia. She's wearing a superhero costume under her clothes. Stan offers Mia a deal. If I write your exact weight on a piece of paper, you'll give the costume back. Mia agrees and gives Stan a piece of paper and a pen. In a minute, she returns the costume. How did Stan do it? Stan literally did what he said. He wrote the phrase, your exact weight, on the paper. Stan needs to find new investors for his agency. That's why he's meeting 3 people, and each offers Stan a deal. Mallory says, I used to have unique superpowers when I was little, but I didn't develop them. Now I'm old and rich, and I want to invest in your lab to help people like me. Cherry says, my parents left me billions of dollars. I want to invest in progressive projects. And Alfred says, look, I can help you develop your agency, but I want to have a controlling stake and hire my own staff. One of them is a liar. Can you guess who? Take a closer look at Mallory's hand. She's a robot. Therefore, her story is a lie, because robots don't age. Ever wondered if you're a musical genius? With this test, you'll be able to figure out if you're the new Mozart or if you're in desperate need of some music lessons. Grab your headphones and good luck! For starters, we'll be measuring your pitch knowledge. If you're the type of person that sings out of tune to your favorite songs, you'll learn a lot from this. But if you're pitch perfect, well then just go join a musical already. You'll hear two notes played one after the other. Can you tell if the second note is lower or the same as the first one? If you said it was lower, then you're right. A couple more points and you could join Taylor Swift's crew on tour, huh? The next notes may be a little more high-pitched, but can you tell if the second note is higher or lower than the first? Did you say higher? Then you got it right. Okay, so this one will get a tiny bit harder. You'll hear two notes separated by a 5-second gap. Can you tell if they're the same or different? Yup, they're the same. I have to say, I like where this is going. For this next round, you'll hear a chord and a note. If you don't know the difference between the two, just keep in mind that a chord is made up of multiple notes. We'll need you to tell us if you think this chord and this note will go well together, or if they clash with each other. I'd say they go really well together, right? Congratulations, you made it through the first part of this test without giving up. That sure says something about you, huh? But before we move on to the second part, let's bring some sound-related trivia. What's the animal with one of the highest hearing capabilities? If you said it's a moth, then you got it right. These little ones can hear up to 300 kilohertz. And you've made it to the second round. This time, we're testing your producer skills. Like any good musical producer, you need to master harmonies. So, right now, you'll hear a scale and a note. We need you to assess if this scale and this note will match well together, or if they don't fit at all. Here it goes. I'd say they do match, right? Moving on, let's talk about melody. What is a melody, you might ask? Technically speaking, it's a combination of pitch and rhythm. Popularly speaking, it's the catchy tune that stays in your head for days on end. For this part, you'll hear a chord followed by a melody. Can you tell if both of them fit together, or if they sound totally terrible? Oh my gosh, I've never heard anything worse in my life. Just kidding, of course I have. But the answer is no, they don't fit together. Okay, this one is the same as before. Does this melody fit with the chord, or do they clash? Oh, much better now. They do fit together, right? Good for you! You've just completed the second part of this complex test. I'm hoping you got most of the answers right. What do you say? By your results so far, are you going to be the next Harry Styles or Olivia Rodrigo? I hope so. For this bonus round, we're going to talk about tonality. There are two main types of tonalities in Western music: major and minor. Major scales and chords sound open and lively, and they're used to convey happy emotions, while minor scales and chords sound closed and dark. An artist uses this tonality when they want you to feel a sadder emotion. So, for this round, you'll hear a chord followed by a short melody, just like we were doing before. But this time, I need you to tell me if this sample is a major or a minor tonality. Here it goes! Wait, is that a sample from an Adele song? It's definitely a minor tonality, right? It conveys a sadder, more intense feel to it. Okay, let's move on, shall we? Listen to this sample and tell us if you think it's a major or minor tonality. Ah, this sounds happy, so major it is. Since we're here testing for musical geniuses, this next round will get a lot tougher. You see, musical melodies have something musicians call dissonance and consonance. You can think of it as a question and an answer. This is an example of a question. While this would sound more like an answer. Well, one part of the melody goes up and the other seems to go down, right? Okay, geniuses, listen to this melody and tell us, does this sound like a question or an answer? Yikes, this was hard. If you said it sounded like an answer, then you nailed it, Beethoven. Let's try this one for a time. Can you tell if this melody sounds like it's resolved, like an answer, or unresolved, like a question? This was definitely unresolved. Hooray, you guys! I knew you wouldn't disappoint me. So we're moving on to the last section of our test. If you learned anything by now, you'll be able to get this next question right. For this part, you'll hear 7 consecutive ascending notes. Then, we'll pause for 5 seconds and you will hear a single note. We need you to assess whether the last note we played is contained in the 7-note scale we played you. Got it? Here it goes! If you think it was contained in the 7-note scale, then you got it right. And you definitely have an amazing ear. Let's do this once more. Listen to the scale and assess whether the last note is contained in the scale. Again, it was contained by the 7-note scale. Since our ears are heated up, let's take this one further. For this part, you'll hear 2 4-note melodies. Your job is to identify whether the 4 notes used in the first melody are the same as the ones used in the second melody. Here's a tip. We won't change multiple notes. Only one. Okay, here it goes. If you identified that the last note was changed, then you got it right. Same thing here. Listen to both melodies and tell us if they're the same, or if one of the notes was changed. Yeah, you're so good! Both melodies were identical. Let's repeat the exercise we just did, but this time we're allowed to change more than one note in the second melody. Here it goes. So the second and fourth notes from the second melody were altered, right? I have to say, if you got those last ones right, you definitely are a musical genius. Before we head on to our last bonus round, let's count your points. If you got 90% or plus correctly, then you're definitely the next Mozart. If you got between 70 and 80%, then you have a sharp ear, but still, you need to work on it a bit more. If you scored between 50 and 60%, what can I say? Does anybody got a contact of a music teacher here? And if you scored below that, do the whole thing again, will you? And now, for the great finale, I give you the world's best ear test. Great musicians have to have great ears. So let's check where y'all are currently standing in the frequency spectrum. FYI, an average person can hear from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Here's how this will work. We'll travel across and beyond the human sound spectrum and play some sound frequencies a human ear usually can't perceive. As soon as you begin to hear the sound, pause the video. Check the number on the screen. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! So what number did you get? If you didn't score so well, don't worry about it. Maybe in the next lifetime you'll come as a bat and have super hearing qualities. Just kidding. I hope you had fun doing it though.
Jeremiah is on the run from the police. He stole several large gold bars from the bank. He has 3 gold bars in his arms, each weighing 20 pounds. In fact, there's a way for him to get away with that. All he needs to do is to cross a bridge. But here's the kicker. The bridge can only support 200 pounds. The 3 bars of gold weigh 60 pounds, and Jeremiah weighs 160 pounds. How can he cross the bridge without getting rid of any of the bars? Seems like to do so, one of the bars should literally float in the air. To make it happen, Jeremiah must juggle them. This way, only 2 bars will be acting on the bridge, while the third one will be airborne. Voila! 160 plus 20 plus 20 equals 200. So the bridge isn't likely to let Jeremiah down. You're playing dodgeball with 2 other people, Arnie and Preston. You're standing in a triangle, and you all take turns throwing a ball at one of the others of your choosing until only one person is remaining. You have a 30% chance of hitting someone you aim at. Arnie has a 50% chance, and Preston a 100% chance. Yeah, this guy never misses. If you hit somebody, they are out and no longer get a turn. If the order of throwing is you, Arnie, and then Preston, what should you do to have the best chance of winning? First, you gotta miss the first time on purpose. If you try to hit Arnie and you do hit him, then Preston goes next, and he will 100% hit you, and you will lose for sure. If you aim at Preston and hit him, then Arnie will go for you. If you miss on your first turn, Arnie will go for Preston for sure because he's a stronger player. If he hits him, then it's just you and Arnie, but you are going first. If he misses, then Preston will hit Arnie, and it will be just you and Preston. But again, in this case, you are going first. It will be a 30% chance, but this way, you're in the finals. A man wants to enter an exclusive club, but he doesn't know the password. Another man walks to the door, and the doorman says 12. The man says 6, and is let in. Another man walks up, and the doorman says 6. The man says 3, and is let in. Thinking he has heard enough, he walks up to the door, and the doorman says 10. He says 5, and he isn't let in. What should he have said? He should have said how many letters were in the number he said. A thief enters a high-end boutique and frightens the shop assistant, forcing him to open the safe. The shop assistant says, "The code for the safe is different every day, and if you try to do anything to me, you'll never get the code." But the thief manages to guess the code on his own. How did he do it? That thief was smart. The code is different. The shop assistant told him this. A woman is found alone in the middle of the desert. She's surrounded by a pile of debris and a wrecked plane. There are no other signs of life in the area. Despite the crash, the woman is alive and well. Nothing serious happened to her, and she appears to be in good health. How did she survive? Look closer. The woman wasn't on the plane when it crashed. She survived by jumping out of the airplane with a parachute before it crashed. Two fathers and their two sons go fishing together. They each catch one fish to take home with them. They do not lose any fish, and yet when they get home, they only have 3 fish. How can this happen? There are just 3 people: a grandfather, his son, and his grandson. A super wealthy businessman, Mr. Ben Swift, was taken and left locked up all alone in a dark room. His phone almost ran out of charge, so he can write only one message. He knows that someone might spy on his phone, so he decided to write a message with a code to a high school friend, John Smith, who has a detective agency. He remembered that in high school, they would cipher messages to each other, shifting one letter to the right each time they needed to write a secret code. So, check this out. Can you guess what it means? It's not gibberish. The message is, "It was my accountant." You were wandering in the jungle, and all of a sudden, you saw a magnificent antique castle. You enter it and see its inhabitants. It's kind of hard to say if they're friendly or not, but hey, look, they just fetched you some snacks. Still, you can tell from their grins that these snacks must be a trap for you. You can't say no to them and need to choose something to eat. There are 4 muffins before you, all looking yummy, and your mouth is watering. One of the dwellers, who seems to be their leader, tells you that the first muffin has some fermented cabbage inside. The second one is swarming with live ants. The third one has mud instead of chocolate cream, and the fourth one has ackee fruit inside. So, which dessert would you opt for? A muffin with fermented cabbage may sound weird and not dessert-like, but it's safe. You've tried fermented cabbage, also known as kimchi, before, and you loved it. For those who love to risk, the fourth one could be good to go too. Ackee fruit is delicious when cooked properly, but you weren't sure if the dwellers took care of cooking it well. As for ants and mud muffins, I'd pass on them for sure. Mary is a nail technician. Her services are free to anyone who wants to set up an appointment with her. However, most people still end up paying here. How so? Mary only does one hand for free, so most people who come to get her services end up paying the full price. They don't really want to look bizarre with the nails done only on one hand. Jocelyn went grocery shopping and bought a lot of milk, yogurts, meat, and cheese. When she came back home, she realized she had nowhere to store all these products, as her fridge was already full. How can she save all the food that she bought? Jocelyn needs to order stuff in her fridge. Look, here's a pack of rice, some chips, and even cookies. These products don't need to be stored in the fridge. Once she takes it all out of the fridge, she'll have enough space to store dairy products and meat. Phil's teacher is a great person, but like many other people, he has some oddities. He would never let Phil go home until he solves one of his tricky riddles. This time, the riddle is, how many apples in total are there on a pine if there are 5 apples on each branch and there are 8 branches on the tree?
Uh-oh.
Okay, this one was easy. There are no apples on a pine. There are cones. Poor Kathy lived with a stepmother and 3 wicked stepsisters. Sounds familiar. Her dream was to go to a lit party she's been waiting for all year long. Her stepmother, Evelyn, never let Kathy go anywhere. This time, Evelyn decided to let Kathy go when she has finished all the tasks given by Evelyn. The stepmother asked Kathy to bring her some water, but she gave her a colander to carry water in. How can Kathy bring the water if she has nothing but a colander? Kathy needs to freeze some water and put it in the colander. It takes some time to melt, but when Evelyn gets that colander full of ice, technically, she'll have a colander full of water. Hey Kathy, make sure to be back by midnight. You need a ride?